So today I'm going to talk about what are some things that Blockbuster could have done to not completely go bankrupt. I mean, they're down to like one location, the Bend, Oregon location, and even that might close. That is crazy. I mean, they used to have thousands and thousands of locations. This seems kind of crazy that they completely just dwindled. It wasn't even something like a Circuit City situation where they had a bunch of stores, went bankrupt, had to close all the stores. Blockbuster, it was death by a thousand cuts. They just kept dwindling, 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 dwindling. So I used to work at Blockbuster around the time when things were going downhill from 2006 to 2009. And even when I started in 2006, people would always come in and say, hey, Netflix is going to beat you. Netflix is so much better. You guys have no chance in competing. And this was at a time when people were doing Netflix, when they were getting DVDs in the mail from Netflix. That was the way Netflix did it at the time. And then eventually, obviously, they went to streaming, and now they're pretty much all streaming. But even in 2006, people just liked the convenience of Netflix. So, what did Blockbuster do to try to compete with this? Well, they opened their own online service, and they spent tons of money doing this. And I remember working at the store when they were kicking this thing off. And we would have to sell memberships to people, and they would keep track of how many memberships we sold. It was a little bit of a sneaky process. We would have a laptop that would be sitting on the counter next to us with a big sign saying, sign up for the Blockbuster Online. We'd give people at the time a 1 month free trial. They kept switching this around. It started from 2 weeks to 1 month. They would get a free trial and they would fill out the information, and they could get a free trial for this Blockbuster Online, which would ape Netflix. It would work the same. They would send DVDs in the mail. You would order them online. They'd send you the DVDs, and then you could return them through the mail. Or, and this is the kicker, this is where Blockbuster thought they had the advantage, you could take those DVDs they sent in the mail, and you could return them into the store and get a quote-unquote free rental. So you take your DVD for the mail, you watch it, you take it into the store, and then you just hand it to the employee. Well, we'd have to scan it. And then you could pick out another movie for free. Online DVD for a free rental. And then all you'd have to do, rather than mail it back, is just hand it to the employee, and we would send it back for you. Or you could send it in the mail yourself. So believe it or not, people actually did like this. This wasn't a terrible idea. However, they spent so much money doing this, I do wonder, and it ultimately failed. It probably would have been better, I'm sure they think this too, looking back, to use that money for other purposes, maybe paying the employees more, and doing what I think they should have done, which is transitioning from a rental store to a store that sells DVDs. Maybe they could even get into albums. We did actually start selling stereo equipment. So Blockbuster started selling CDs and these kind of big stereos, realizing that people just weren't going to continue coming into the store and renting DVDs. Also, one thing they didn't push, and even when I left in 2009, the one thing that Blockbuster was still kind of good for was kids merchandise, because family would like to bring their kids in. They could go to the kids section and pick out a movie to watch. There still would be a market even today for something like that, but you would have to kind of transition the store to like half of it being a kids section, maybe put a little silly playground. Some Blockbusters had stuff like that. We had a little kids area, but it's not like you could just leave your kids there necessarily. And just realize that the hardcore movie watcher is going to do Netflix. You're going to lose them. They're going away. However, the kids still come in. And also video games. And this is something they really didn't focus on very much. We would rent video games as well. Now, the competitor for Blockbuster for that would have been something like GameFly, which works like Netflix for video games. You order a video game in the mail, they send it to you. You play it, you send it back. Once again, this is like in 2006. Obviously now everything goes to streaming, including video games with stuff like PlayStation Plus. But they could have extended this for a little while. I mean, even GameStop is technically still in business, and they're selling actual copies of games that you take home and put it in your PS5. So they're still around. Will GameStop eventually go under? Yeah, it seems like it. They're certainly downsizing a lot. And if you've been to a GameStop recently, they're selling a bunch of like figurines, amiibos, little keychains, like moving away from games. And that's another thing Blockbuster could have done. Do some posters, do some little cartoon characters the kids can buy. So I think if they did half the store kid stuff, and then half the store more of like a video game type focused, like GameStop, they at least would have been able to extend for a few more years until they could probably retail stores are going to go away just because that's the way it's going to be. Another thing that we did that nobody really knows about or talks about is they had the Blockbuster Online, which of course ultimately failed. They spent way too much money on. Easy to say now. They thought at the time they could take on Netflix. I mean, they were somewhat competitive with Netflix. Netflix was not the complete juggernaut it is right now. And once again, they had it started their watch instantly. But Blockbuster did another thing that they never promoted, and I never understood why. They had this thing called Movie Pass. So you would pay a monthly fee. I believe at the time it was $21.99 for one movie and like $29.99 for two movies. And you would rent a movie. So if you had the $21.99, you would get one movie at a time. You'd rent the movie, and then you would just get unlimited rentals for the rest of the month. So as many movies as you could watch. If you wanted to rent that movie, go home, watch it, come back 3 hours later, get another movie, go home, watch it, come back later, and get another one. You could just do that forever. And I found it odd that they didn't promote this, because this did seem like a good way to make a fair amount of money. It was a pretty high bar, $21.99 and $30. They could have possibly lowered that, or maybe they should have kept it at that bar, knowing that people really aren't just going to rent a movie, go home and watch it, come back 2 hours later, go home and watch it. I mean, I knew like maybe 2 or 3 people at our store that actually did do that and just used it like 40 times a month, but no one else did. Most people would watch a movie, come back a week later, maybe get another one, come back 3 weeks later, get another one, and then they'd rent like 2 or 3 movies a month, if that. Now, what they would really bank on is that someone would sign up for Movie Pass and just never use it. Just like there's people that sign up for Hulu and they never use it. They sign up for Paramount Plus, they watch like one show, they just like forget they even have it, and they just charge you monthly. Movie Pass is definitely something they should have promoted, and there was only a few people. At the store I was at, there was maybe 10 people in total that even did something like that. Of people that visited the store, of the thousands of people that visited the store. So it was kind of crazy they didn't promote that. And I remember even at the time, I go, why don't they tell more people about Movie Pass? People would definitely do this, especially if people rent a lot, or they might think it's a good deal, even though it might not be a good deal for them. And Blockbuster could keep charging them monthly. They could generate a lot of revenue for this and find the exact price point that would actually make sense. And they never did. They went completely to Blockbuster Online. They kept the Movie Pass, but they never promoted it, ever. They just went so hard with the Blockbuster Online. It also started annoying people, too, because they would sign up for this free trial. Except when I was doing it, was a month free trial. Okay, you get it free for a month. Well, what happens after that month? Of course, you have to put in your credit card, and people would get mad. They would fill out the form. Well, it was on the computer, but they would fill out the form on the computer. Then it'd get to the last part where it says, put in your credit card information. And people go, oh, I don't want to do that. And half the people would walk away. And even the half that didn't walk away, they never wanted to do it. We're like, okay, are they going to charge me? And we always had to tell them, yes, they're going to charge you. Here's the date. You get it free for a month. But on January 5th, they will charge your credit card for whatever it was, $10 a month. You can cancel any time. You don't have to like call to cancel or something like that. And you're not signing up for a year. It was month to month. But you are going to have to cancel. And this just kind of made people mad. They also started messing with it started out as like a good deal, and they just kept raising the price, which was inevitable. You get people at a low price, $10, and they raise it $13, $14. I mean, obviously Netflix does stuff like that too. And they don't just do it with inflation. They raise it. They think they could generate. So that's another thing too. And they raise the price a lot. Constantly. So we get a lot of angry customers. But I really think Movie Pass would have been good to extend it. You could just get a more hardcore fan base. Also have a giant kids section, which they did start to do. They did start focusing a little bit on the kids section, but they're so distracted with the Blockbuster Online. It got to the point in 2009 when I ended up going to college that half the people that were coming in were families and kids. That was literally the amount of people in 2006. It was kind of everybody, because basically everyone was going to Blockbuster 2006. By 2009, no, that number had decreased a lot. A lot of people were doing Netflix. And one more thing I think they could have done. So the kids section, focusing more on games, selling games, which they never really did, or renting games. I believe they had a movie pass. I can't remember if they had a movie pass for games, but that would have been a good idea too. You could charge them $20 a month and say, hey, you can rent as many games, like one at a time. You rent one game, then return it. You can do that as many times as you want in a month. Because we would have a lot of games that would just sit out and nobody would rent. Probably why they didn't focus on the games. But it's not because people wouldn't want to rent games. It's just the price was kind of high. Also, the late fee structure was ridiculous. That was another thing that really sunk them. I'll explain how the late fees worked. So they had this big promotion where they said no more late fees. That was BS. Everybody knew it was BS. Of course there's late fees. They just do it in a more bizarre way. Technically, people saved money with the new system if you knew how to outgame the system. Because before, you would just get late fees that would just pile up and pile up and pile up. It would end up costing you more in late fees than if you just bought the movie new. That actually wouldn't happen when they got rid of quote-unquote late fees. So what they allowed you to do is they allowed you to rent a movie and keep it for 30 days. And if you kept it for 30 days, or past 30 days, they would charge you the price of the movie. And it wasn't something super high either. So let's say it's a new movie comes out 2007, and it cost them $30. They're selling it for like $30. They would just charge you $30 after 30 days. So they would sell you the movie and then you could keep it. However, if you kept it over the rental date, so if it was a new release, kept it over the 2 or 3 days, they would charge you a restocking fee. It wasn't very much. It was like $2 or $3. But this was kind of ridiculous because they're telling everyone there's no late fees, and then they charge them a small amount, this restocking fee, which is a late fee. So let's say you get a 3-day rental and you keep it 4 days and you return it. They charge you like a $2 restocking fee. But let's say you get a 3-day rental and you keep it 20 days. They'd still charge you a $3 restocking fee. It wasn't until you kept it more than a month that they would sell the movie to you. So that's how people could game the system. You just get a new release, you rent it, and you just keep it for 25 days. I'll get around to it in a couple weeks. And the store is losing revenue because you make a lot out of new releases. And that was something they were good at promoting. As much as I'm being negative, I actually enjoyed my time working there, but I definitely got out at the right time. But they were good at actually promoting new releases. And this did work. Our new release wall was like 100 movies, and they would be rented out within the first couple days. Almost always. Like, they really did a good job with promotion, posters, commercials, of letting people know what big movies are coming out. And people really would want to see the new releases. It worked way better than I thought it would. I figured people would just come in there, meander around, and pick a random movie. No, they would go right to the new release wall, and the store was set up so that it would guide you right to the new release wall with arrows, with giant signs, and just a huge wall of like 100 movies. Also, I think it's a psychological thing. If you're looking on the new release wall, you're looking for something to watch, and you see you have even a movie you're not interested in. I don't know, we got a lot of complaints about something like Touristas or something like that dumb movie, that like horror movie. But if you see like 40 copies of Touristas, you go, oh, maybe it's a good movie. Look how many copies they have. Maybe it's a popular movie. So literally would psychologically trick people into thinking, I need to get a new release because look, this must be a good movie. There's so many copies. Or a lot of the copies are rented out, so a lot of people are liking this movie, supposedly. I remember when Idiocracy came out, and while I think it's a great movie, it was really polarizing. I mean, we got so many complaints about Idiocracy, about how much people hate it. That and Borat, Sacha Baron Cohen being a dick, decided to make the DVD. I'll show you what it looks like. Look like a bootleg DVD. That's how it looks. If you actually buy this thing new, it looks like a bootleg DVD just to mess with people. Oh, so funny. So, do a bigger kids section, focus on that. Do more video games. Sell video games, and do a movie pass with video games. Promote Movie Pass. Forget the no more late fees thing. Do not let people keep new release movies 30 days. You're just going to have to charge people late fees. Make them less, make them not too much money, but you have to charge people late fees. Because people would game the system, they'd rent a new release, and just keep it for 29 days. And now you lose out on all that revenue, and they return it, and you get a $2 restocking fee. So you make basically no money on that movie. Because after the first month, the new release, it'll go from 100 copies to 20 to 10. And then what they would do, another thing they should have focused on, this is the last thing I'm going to say, then we'll end this video. Another thing they should have done, because rentals are just kind of going to go away, is they should have focused more on selling movies. So let's say you get something like Idiocracy. Believe it or not, did not do that well. Like I said, I think it's a hilarious movie. And some people really liked it, but it kind of bombed. You have 100 copies when it first releases. Then you have to make room for the other new releases, so you have to get these things off the wall. So it goes down to 50 copies, 20, 10, and eventually it goes down to 1 copy. Now, what do you do with the rest of those? You have an inventory of 100. Now you're down to 1 within, a year or so. Well, you sell them, and that's what Blockbuster would do. They would just take the copy of Idiocracy, rent it a bunch of times, and then sell it. This is actually a pretty good business plan. So you get 100 copies of a movie, you rent it out for a few weeks, then a couple months go by, you go down to 50, you take the extra 50 and you sell them. So you can see how this would actually be very profitable. However, Blockbuster also did something really, really dumb that no one knows about it. So you think they would just take the rental copies and sell them. There's a section of the store, usually at the front, that would be like 4 for $20. That would usually be the best deal, and the lowest we sold movies at was $3.99. So if they really didn't sell after like a year or maybe 2 years, it'd go down to $3.99. However, they also destroyed movies, and I remember them telling us to do this, and even as a little kid, an 18-year-old, I was like, hold on, we have to destroy movies? So they would sometimes have this little, I guess you could say, paper shredder type thing. It wouldn't completely shred the entire disc, but it would basically make it unreadable. And so we'd put it through this little quote unquote paper shredder, and it would just destroy the movies. So if we just had too much inventory, they wouldn't just, do the smart thing, which is discount it to $1, $2, $3, because like I said, the lowest they went was $3.99. They would destroy the movies. And we destroyed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of movies. We didn't donate them or anything like that. They literally are just destroying their inventory. This is so astronomically dumb. I've worked at other jobs where they've done things like this as well. Let's say you have too much candy and it's going to expire in a week. They'll start throwing it out. But a smart person, I should say manager, will just go, okay, that stuff's going to expire in a week? Fine. We'll just sell it at 90% discount. Somebody will buy it. And I have had bosses that would do that, not at Blockbuster, but other jobs. And guess what? It always worked. Just sell it at 90% discount. Someone's going to buy this Tootsie Roll Pop that aren't selling off the shelf that are about to expire. And that's what they should have done here. But they were really adamant at not letting anything go under $3.99. I think they thought it would mess it up if they started selling things at $1 or $2. Stuff in the back where we can pile movies. Maybe there's some genius corporate red tape that I'm not aware of that somehow putting hundreds of DVDs through a paper shredder instead of giving them away or selling them at an extreme discount, this makes sense. I don't think it does make sense. And when we reduce movies to $3.99, guess what? They would sell very, very quickly. And this was $3.99 in 2006, 2007, so they could have gone lower than that. They never did, at least at our store. So you reduced it to $3.99, pretty much that movie would sell within a month. The $3.99 rack was towards the very front of the store because they really wanted to make people know this stuff was on discount, so they would grab it. It was also right where the counter was. And the $3.99 movies would always sell. So this was another just boneheaded move that maybe there's some red tape or maybe some legalistics that I'm not aware of, some destroying movies. So dumb. And we would do that as well with some of the candy that didn't sell, but there really wasn't as much candy. So while that would happen sometimes as well, really it was the destroying of movies. In fact, the candy section was quite popular with these big popcorn tubs that I wish they sold. I sometimes see them in places like Walmart, but they're not the official Blockbuster popcorn tubs, where it looks like something you would get at the movie theater, but it has the bag at the bottom, and you just put it in the microwave, and it pops up right into this paper movie theater bowl. Those things were great. They tasted amazing and sold really well. So they had some kind of quote-unquote proprietary candies and popcorn that you really couldn't find anywhere else. So that's another sad thing about it going away. But destroying movies, I remember doing that. I remember we had this weird employee that instead of putting it through the quote-unquote paper shredder, he just decided to destroy them himself with his hands. And this was one of the dumbest ideas ever, because if you've ever tried to crack a DVD and just break the entire thing apart, 100 things will fly in every direction. We had to clean up after this moron decided to do this. When you tell people to destroy things, you get kind of weird people who are like, I get to destroy it? I can hit it with a hammer? Don't tell employees to destroy things. Some of them enjoy it a little too much. Not me. I want to just save them. But there's some more psychotic people that you tell them to destroy things and wow, that's all they want to do. Okay, Renard, you can destroy the DVDs. I don't want to do it anyways. I want to save them. Getting less new releases, but selling these movies so that they still make a profit. And turned Blockbuster more into a movie store where you buy stuff, not necessarily rent. Then a kids section where you could still do a fair amount of rentals and, I don't know, sell them some amiibos. Put some Sonic plushes there and make the parents buy it for them. There's also another funny story where Blockbuster, as some people have mentioned, had the ability to buy Netflix in the early 2000s for a pretty cheap price. And they would have kept all the Netflix staff. So it wasn't even that they were doing like a takeover of Netflix and they would replace all the people. They're just going to keep all the people. So Netflix would have been just as successful now if they had been independent as they would have been if Blockbuster bought them, because there was no indication they were going to do anything. They were just going to kind of buy it as like a vanity project. So that's another major mistake, not buying Netflix. And then by the time they became their main competition, it was too much to buy them. So it'd be nice to see at least a few of them remain. I mean, even where I live in Texas, there's still some stores that sell DVDs. There's not a ton of them, and they do go out of business, but there's still some quote-unquote mom-and-pop stores that do stuff like that. the idea that every Blockbuster goes away and there's like one left is kind of ridiculous. So those are my reasons for things Blockbuster could have done that I think probably would have worked. Do you think I'm right? Of course I'm right. Am I Monday morning quarterbacking? Of course I am. If I was in charge, 2006 would have been better? Probably not. I was a kid. I didn't know anything. But it is interesting to think about because I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. You still have places that sell movies today. You still have used bookstores. There is somewhat of a market for this, especially if you focus on video games, kids, and maybe selling some posters and stuff like that. Hell, GameStop's trying to get into like the phone business. Okay. Sure, there's a lot of money in the phone business, so I don't know, throw some cell phones up there. I mean, you kind of have to test to see if what works, but something could work. They had a ton of money. They didn't just sell movies, they also did video games. They also had like kind of proprietary snacks, and we started selling, like I said, CD players and stereo equipment. They could have branched out. It's all kind of in the entertainment fun genre. So, because we would have kiosks too, where we would let people like play video games and stuff. So it was a fun place to go to. At least the store that I worked at was a really huge one. It wasn't a hole in the wall Blockbuster. So we had at the time a PS3 that was set up and people would play. So you could make it into kind of a fun environment that people could bring their kids. This is Monday morning quarterbacking at its finest. But it's also kind of fun to reflect and sad that these things just completely went away. I did not expect that. I saw the decline. I figured the decline would continue, but wow. I remember when I was in Virginia, there was one Blockbuster that was still around in like 2014, and that was like a novelty. I went there to just kind of check it out. And this is in 2014. I was like, wow, you guys are still around. They go, I know. They, of course, got shut down eventually, but like in 2014, it was like a big deal that there was a Blockbuster that was still standing. So 2009, by 2014, it was a ghost town. Embarrassing. They could have done better. I think so. So that's all my advice. Thanks.